What if the faces we've seen in textbooks and oil paintings weren't entirely accurate? Thanks to powerful forensic tools, advanced AI modeling, and deep archival research, we're now seeing historical icons like never before, from the rugged reality of George Washington's angular features to the weathered Brazilians etched into Harriet Tubman's face. Today's reconstructions reveal the truth behind the myths. These aren't just static portraits. They're vivid, humanized recreations based on 3D scans of life masks, authenticated photos, and first-hand descriptions. You'll see how Abraham Lincoln's solemn gaze carried the burden of a divided nation, and how Rosa Parks' gentle expression masked an unshakable resolve. Even figures like W.E.B. Du Bois and Malcolm X emerge with striking clarity, less idealized, more real, and more powerful than ever. In Past Paradise, we dive into the latest reconstructions to discover what these legends looked like and what their true faces tell us about the lives they lived. What they really looked like, unveiling the faces of history. George Washington, the first president of the United States, is often depicted in portraits with a dignified and composed demeanor. However, historical accounts and descriptions provide a more nuanced picture of his appearance. Standing at over 6 feet tall, Washington possessed a commanding presence. People described his facial features as strong and angular, characterized by a prominent nose and a high forehead. Although often depicted as white in later years, Washington's hair was originally dark and turned gray as he aged. Washington's attire was typically formal, reflecting his status, and he was known to wear a powdered wig, a typical fashion of the 18th century. Despite the idealized images, these descriptions offer a glimpse into the real man behind the iconic portraits. Thomas Jefferson, the man behind the portraits. As of 2025, modern forensic techniques, combined with historical records and facial reconstruction technologies, have provided a significantly clearer view of what Thomas Jefferson likely looked like in real life, moving far beyond the idealized paintings of the 18th and 19th centuries. Jefferson, the third president of the United States and principal author of the Declaration of Independence, is traditionally portrayed with aristocratic features, high cheekbones, a slender face, and a refined posture. However, the recent analyses based on busts, death masks, and verified portraits, alongside Jefferson's writings and descriptions from contemporaries, suggest a somewhat more rugged and less romanticized figure. Standing at approximately 6 feet 2 inches tall, he was considered tall for his time, with a lean build that reflected his active lifestyle and interests in gardening, riding, and architecture. His skin was freckled and ruddy, not pale and smooth as many oil portraits suggest. Jefferson's natural hair color was reddish blonde in youth, which he wore in a queue, powdered and tied back, in line with the fashion of elite Virginian gentlemen. Reports described his eyes as hazel, and his gentlemanly demeanor often exuded a distant or introspective air. He preferred understated but refined clothing, usually hand-picked by himself, and his posture and stride were deliberate, marked by a quiet self-assuredness. These findings, enhanced by artificial intelligence tools now used by historians and museums, paint a more realistic and relatable image of Jefferson, not just as a philosophical statesman, but as a living man with physical imperfections and unique traits shaped by his time, environment, and personality. John Adams reimagined, the real face of a revolutionary. In 2025, a more precise and realistic portrayal of John Adams, the second president of the United States and a seminal figure in the American Revolution, has emerged thanks to digital forensics, enhanced AI modeling, and detailed examination of historical artifacts. Often overshadowed by more charismatic figures like Washington or Jefferson, Adams was traditionally depicted in rigid, formal portraiture that emphasized his status but flattened the humanity of his appearance. Contemporary data drawn from verified oil paintings, personal correspondence, and rare descriptions by peers such as Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Rush have helped modern historians create an updated and more authentic representation. Adams stood just over 5 feet 7 inches tall and had a stout, compact build, solid but not heavy. His face was round, with a high, broad forehead and pronounced cheekbones. He had small, sharp eyes, often described as penetrating and filled with intensity, reflecting his famously fiery intellect and stubborn temperament. His hair, which turned white relatively early in life, was originally a light brown and was typically worn either curled or pulled back by 18th century fashion. Notably, Adams had a prominent cleft chin and a slightly hooked nose, features that gave his face a striking angularity, particularly when animated during speeches or debates. Often dressing plainly by presidential standards, he favored function over flamboyance, and his expressions were usually solemn rather than smiling. The modern visualization tools available today have provided an image that captures not just his external form, but the layered personality behind the face, determined, devout, and deeply devoted to the American experiment. Reconstructing Benjamin Franklin, the real face of an American genius. As of 2025, the scientific reconstruction of Benjamin Franklin's appearance has gained remarkable accuracy, drawing from enhanced digital modeling, high-resolution scans of life masks, and verified portraits from the 18th century. While Franklin is widely remembered as a bespectacled elder statesman, the popular image often simplifies his looks into that of a grandfatherly figure with balding white hair and a mischievous smile. In reality, Franklin's features were more complex and carried the marks of a life rich with travel, invention, and diplomacy. Standing at about 5 feet 9 inches tall, he had a stocky build that became more pronounced with age, a physical consequence of both indulgence and age-related health challenges, such as gout. His face was broad with a rounded jawline, and his eyes were small but deeply set under heavy lids, giving him an observant and contemplative look. Although most famous images depict him as older, reconstructions of his early life show Franklin with thinning light brown hair, a strong chin, and a youthful vibrancy that diminishes by the time he serves as a diplomat in France. His expressions carried a subtle sternness, often misinterpreted as aloofness, due to his long, slightly crooked and asymmetrical nose, as well as his deep-set mouth. Franklin's preference for simple, Quaker-inspired clothing also adds to the impression of plainness, but historians note he carefully balanced humility with diplomatic presentation. In France, he wore fur hats and intentionally adopted rustic American fashion to craft a persona of frontier wisdom. The updated reconstructions and forensic reviews reveal Franklin not just as a wise old thinker, but as a man whose face evolved over decades of global influence, invention, and political acumen. Alexander Hamilton revealed, the real face of a founding visionary. In 2025, historians and forensic artists have leveraged AI-generated reconstructions, 3D modeling of historic busts, and written accounts from contemporaries to construct the most accurate depiction yet of Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury. While popular culture, especially Broadway's portrayal, has reimagined him with creative flair, the honest Hamilton's appearance was shaped by his Caribbean origins, aristocratic ambitions, and turbulent life in early America. Born in Nevis, Hamilton had a complexion described by peers as tanned or sun-kissed, a reflection of his youth in the West Indies. He stood around 5 feet 7 inches tall, slim in build, with narrow shoulders and an upright posture that conveyed confidence and precision. His facial features were angular and sharply defined, with a high forehead, prominent cheekbones, and a thin-lipped mouth that frequently held a serious, contemplative expression. His eyes, most commonly described as blue or gray, possessed a piercing quality that conveyed both intellect and ambition. His hair was reddish blonde in youth, worn tied back and powdered in the fashionable hue of his time, giving him a polished European-influenced appearance that reinforced his social aspirations. Despite the romanticized portraits, recent reconstructions suggest subtle asymmetries in his face, including a slightly uneven jawline and a prominent nose, which added depth and realism to his look. These details, once smoothed over by 18th century painters, are now central in understanding Hamilton's physical appearance. His fashion choices were deliberate, tailored coats, cravats, and polished boots, mirroring his desire to rise socially. Today's reconstructions offer a more vivid and grounded view of Hamilton as a driven, brilliant man shaped by hardship and ambition, rather than just a legend. James Madison reimagined, the true face of a constitutional giant. As of 2025, with advanced facial reconstruction software and data from authenticated portraits, letters, and eyewitness accounts, historians have developed a clearer image of what James Madison, the fourth President of the United States and father of the Constitution, truly looked like. Contrary to the majestic impressions often painted in textbooks or artistic renditions, Madison's actual appearance was modest, matching his reserved personality and intellectual demeanor. Standing barely 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighing around 100 pounds, Madison was the smallest U.S. president in stature, often described as frail or delicate in build. His complexion was pale, and throughout his life he suffered from chronic health issues, which subtly affected his posture and presence. He had a high forehead, prominent blue eyes, and thin lips that seldom curled into a full smile, giving his face a pensive or even solemn expression in most encounters. Madison's hair was light brown in youth, later turning gray, and typically worn in a short, simple style that reflected his preference for conservative fashion. His clothing was unadorned, practical, and suited to his serious public persona. He favored dark coats and white cravats, rarely indulging in the ornate dress favored by more flamboyant contemporaries. While his frame and physical features may have been unremarkable at first glance, the realism brought forth by 2025 reconstructions shows the depth of his intense gaze and the thoughtfulness etched into his expressions. This updated image of Madison offers a powerful visual contrast, a physically unassuming man who nonetheless played a titanic role in shaping American democracy with quiet authority and unrelenting intellect. John Jay revealed, the real face of America's first Chief Justice. By 2025, historians and digital experts will create a more comprehensive and realistic visual representation of John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, utilizing verified oil paintings, rare descriptions from individuals who knew him, and advanced 3D modeling techniques. Long perceived as one of the more enigmatic founding fathers in terms of visual representation, Jay has traditionally been portrayed in formal judicial robes with a distant, composed expression, often lacking the physical details that offer real human depth. Contemporary descriptions from friends and adversaries alike note that Jay stood just under 6 feet tall, relatively tall for his time, with a lean and slightly angular frame. His facial structure was narrow, defined by high cheekbones, a pointed chin, and a long, slightly hooked nose, all of which gave him a stern, watchful demeanor. His eyes were deep-set and dark brown, often described as sharp and assessing, qualities that matched his reputation for being deeply analytical and reserved. His hair was originally a dark chestnut shade, worn long and tied back in the powdered queue style typical among 18th century politicians. As he aged, his hair thinned considerably, adding to the austere appearance captured in later portraits. His fashion was elegant yet minimalist, typically favoring dark coats with understated detailing, a visual echo of his precise and measured approach to law and diplomacy. Modern reconstructions, now informed by advanced AI patterning of facial musculature and skin texture, depict Jay not as a distant legal icon, but as a keen-eyed, quietly intense figure with the face of a man who carried the weight of justice with restrained but resolute dignity. Abraham Lincoln reconstructed, the true face of a nation's guardian. By 2025, the real-life appearance of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States and a pivotal figure in American history, will have been illuminated with remarkable accuracy through advanced forensic facial reconstruction and analysis of historical photographs, portraits, and eyewitness descriptions. Lincoln, famously tall at 6 feet 4 inches, was notable not only for his height, but also for his lean and somewhat angular frame, which often gave him a lanky, almost towering presence. His face was long and narrow, with deep-set eyes that were described as gray and thoughtful, reflecting the weight of the enormous challenges he faced during the Civil War. His prominent cheekbones and high cheek hollows, combined with a strong jawline and distinctive chin cleft, gave his visage a solemn intensity rarely captured fully in traditional paintings or photographs. His skin tone was pale, often weathered by years spent outdoors during his frontier youth and as a traveling lawyer. Lincoln's hair, dark and somewhat unruly, showed signs of early graying, while his beard, which he famously grew at the suggestion of an 11-year-old girl, became one of his most recognizable features. Clothing-wise, Lincoln preferred simple, functional attires such as his signature stovepipe hat, plain black frock coats, and a bow tie, reflecting his humble origins and unpretentious character. Forensic studies conducted by 2025, utilizing digital images and 3D printing based on skull measurements, portray Lincoln as a strong and relatable person with subtle flaws and expressions that underscore his strength, wisdom, and lasting influence during a particularly challenging time in America. Weathered and strong, the true image of Andrew Jackson. In 2025, the visual representation of Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States and a highly controversial populist figure, will have been refined by cutting-edge facial reconstruction and detailed study of period descriptions, portraits, and preserved artifacts. Historically, people often portray Jackson with a fierce and rugged demeanor. However, modern analysis reveals a more complex portrayal of his physical traits. Standing about 5 feet 7 inches tall, Jackson had a robust and stocky build that reflected his years as a soldier and frontier lawyer. His face was characterized by strong, angular features, a broad forehead, deep-set, piercing blue eyes, and a prominent aquiline nose, giving him a resolute and commanding presence. His jaw was square and often set firmly, mirroring his determined personality and combative nature. Contemporary accounts describe his hair as reddish-brown in youth, later graying, but still thick and frequently swept back in the style typical of the early 19th century. Unlike many idealized portraits that soften his look, forensic reconstructions depict subtle lines and scars, testaments to his numerous duels and rough life experiences. His skin bore the marks of harsh outdoor living, with a weathered and tanned complexion. Jackson's attire was practical yet commanding. He favored military-style coats and simple cravats that underscored his image as a man of the people and a fierce defender of American sovereignty. These nuanced reconstructions from 2025 provide a more vivid and humanized image of Jackson, not only as a fiery politician, but also as a physically imposing man shaped by struggle, ambition, and an unyielding will. Portrait of a Titan, the true image of Theodore Roosevelt. By 2025, technological advances in forensic facial reconstruction, combined with an extensive review of photographs, paintings, and first-hand descriptions, will have provided a vivid and accurate portrayal of Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th President of the United States, known for his reformist zeal and conservation efforts. Roosevelt was physically robust and energetic, standing approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, with a stocky, muscular build, the result of his lifelong dedication to physical fitness and outdoor activities such as boxing and hiking. His face was characterized by a prominent, slightly bulbous nose, a broad jawline, and distinctive high cheekbones, giving him a commanding yet approachable presence. His eyes were sharp, bright blue, often described as intense and penetrating, reflecting his indomitable spirit and relentless drive. Roosevelt's thick, dark brown hair, usually worn somewhat tousled, framed a face marked by a trademark mustache that added to his distinctive look. His complexion was ruddy, a testament to his vigorous outdoor lifestyle. Unlike the polished and sometimes idealized images common in his era, modern reconstructions emphasize the lines and creases around his eyes and mouth, signs of both his vitality and the stresses of his strenuous career. His clothing, frequently depicted in his Rough Rider uniform or tailored suits, reflected both his adventurous spirit and his political stature. These updated visual interpretations portray Roosevelt not only as a historical icon, but also as a vigorous, intense individual whose physicality matched his charismatic personality and whose visage reflected the complexity of his contributions to American progress and environmental preservation. FDR unveiled, a forensic portrait of America's resilient leader. By 2025, the understanding of Franklin D. Roosevelt's physical appearance will have been significantly enhanced through the use of modern forensic techniques, digitalized archival photos, and extensive personal accounts. As the 32nd president and architect of the New Deal, Roosevelt's image has long been iconic, but simply simplified by the limitations of early 20th century photography and formal portraiture. Standing around 6 feet 2 inches tall, Roosevelt was noted for his commanding presence, yet his posture was affected later in life by the polio that left him with limited use of his legs. His face was long and oval with a pronounced chin and a broad forehead, featuring deep-set, expressive blue-gray eyes that conveyed a mix of warmth, resolve, and political calculation. His hair, once dark brown, grayed as he aged, but remained thick and neatly combed. Unlike the often serious and stoic images used in official photos, personal descriptions reveal a man capable of a disarming smile and approachable demeanor, especially when relaxed in private. Roosevelt's complexion was fair with a slight ruddy undertone, reflecting his outdoor activities and New York aristocratic background. His clothing style was formal yet comfortable, often featuring tailored suits and his signature pince-nez glasses, which became a hallmark of his look. Current reconstructions also consider the subtle effects of polio on his facial muscle tone, providing a more nuanced and humanized depiction. These advancements present a more complete and relatable image of Roosevelt as both a strong leader and a man who faced considerable physical adversity with dignity and determination. John F. Kennedy reconstructed, the man behind the myth. By 2025, advances in digital imaging and forensic analysis will have enabled historians to create an accurate and nuanced portrayal of John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States and a pivotal leader during the Cold War. Kennedy's widely recognized image, shaped by black and white photographs and televised appearances, has often been idealized. Still, new technologies have revealed details that add depth and realism to his visage. Standing approximately 6 feet tall, Kennedy possessed a lean, athletic build, a product of his youthful vigor and commitment to physical fitness, despite suffering from chronic back problems and Addison's disease. His face was oval-shaped with high cheekbones and a strong jawline, features that combined youthful charm with a commanding presence. His eyes, a distinctive steely blue, conveyed intelligence, warmth, and occasionally a hint of vulnerability, often hidden behind his trademark half-smile. His thick, dark hair, famously styled with a slight wave, gradually showed signs of early thinning by his early 40s, a detail captured more clearly in recent reconstructions. Kennedy's complexion was fair with a healthy glow, a testament to his outdoor lifestyle and frequent sun exposure at his family's Massachusetts estate. Unlike the polished and sometimes airbrushed images familiar from campaign materials, these updated representations incorporate subtle skin texture and asymmetries, highlighting the natural imperfections that humanize him. Kennedy's tailored suits, often dark and sharply cut, underscored his polished public persona. Still, modern depictions emphasize the man behind the image, an ambitious, complex figure navigating immense political pressures while projecting youthful optimism and resilience during a tense era of global conflict. Ronald Reagan reconstructed, the real man behind the icon. In 2025, new insights into Ronald Reagan's physical appearance, the 40th President of the United States and a key figure in late 20th century conservatism, have been achieved through the combination of digital forensic reconstruction, archival footage analysis, and detailed reviews of personal memoirs and photographs. Reagan, often remembered as a charismatic and polished public speaker, stood approximately 6 feet 1 inch tall with a lean yet sturdy build, reflecting his earlier years as a Hollywood actor and his lifelong dedication to fitness, which continued well into his presidency. His face was marked by distinctively high cheekbones, a strong jawline, and a broad forehead that often showcased expressive lines formed by decades of smiling and speech-making. His eyes, a clear blue, conveyed warmth and a calm confidence that helped define his approachable yet authoritative public image. Reagan's hair, originally a medium brown, turned a silvery gray during his presidency, but retained a thick, well-groomed style that contributed to his signature look. His skin showed signs of sun exposure from his outdoor lifestyle and acting days, with a tanned, weathered complexion that gave him a rugged appeal beyond the polished politician stereotype. Unlike some of the more stylized images and paintings that emphasize his affability, modern reconstructions add texture and subtle asymmetries to his face, revealing a man shaped by years of public scrutiny and personal trials. Reagan's attire was typically sharp and tailored, with dark suits and neatly knotted ties that symbolized his professional yet personable demeanor. These refined visual interpretations convey a more authentic understanding of Reagan, not just as a political icon, but as a complex individual whose physical presence reflected his blend of charisma, resilience, and conviction. Barack Obama reconstructed, the man beyond the icon. By 2025, advancements in digital imaging, facial recognition, and extensive analysis of video footage, photographs, and personal accounts have allowed historians and scientists to create an exceptionally accurate representation of Barack Obama, the 44th President of the United States and the nation's first African-American leader. Standing approximately 6 feet 1 inch tall, Obama's physique is athletic and slender, a reflection of his dedication to fitness and basketball during and after his presidency. His facial features are distinct and balanced, a broad forehead, high cheekbones, and a strong, square jawline that together convey both approachability and determination. His deep-set eyes are a dark brown, expressive, and often reflect a thoughtful demeanor, complemented by a warm smile that has become iconic in his public appearances. Obama's skin tone is a rich medium brown, reflecting his Kenyan and American heritage. His closely cropped hair, which turned grayer in his later years, is a visible marker of his time in office and the stresses of leadership. Unlike many idealized images, recent 3D reconstructions reveal subtle asymmetries and natural skin texture, emphasizing his humanity beyond the polished public persona. His style remained consistent and modern, favoring well-tailored suits, often with slim lapels and a neat tie, projecting a blend of professionalism and contemporary elegance. These highly detailed visual models from 2025 present Barack Obama not just as a global icon, but as a relatable, multidimensional individual whose physical appearance complements the complexity, charisma, and historical significance of his leadership during a transformative era in American history. Martin Luther King Jr. reimagined, the man behind the movement. As of 2025, advancements in digital reconstruction and historical research have allowed a more accurate and intimate depiction of Martin Luther King Jr., the iconic leader of the civil rights movement. King's public image is often seen through famous photographs and speeches, but modern technology has added nuance to how he physically appeared beyond the camera's lens. Standing at approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall with a lean, graceful build, King carried an aura of calm dignity paired with unwavering resolve. His face was characterized by a smooth oval shape with expressive dark brown eyes that radiated compassion, intelligence, and deep determination. His nose was well defined, and his lips often held a gentle, thoughtful expression, sometimes breaking into a warm, inviting smile that connected with millions. King's hair was thick and black, typically worn short and neatly styled, reflecting both his polished public persona and his meticulous personal standards. His complexion was a rich medium brown, and his skin bore the natural texture and subtle imperfections that come with human life, making the reconstructions feel deeply human rather than idealized. Clothing-wise, King favored sharp, tailored suits, often with slim ties, which reinforced his image as both a minister and a serious political figure. The new 2025 reconstructions feature slight differences in facial features, skin tones, and textures based on AI analysis, portraying King as a complex person whose appearance reflected the strength, humility, and humanity that characterized his significant leadership during a challenging time in America. Malcolm X reconstructed, a true face of Black nationalism. As of 2025, cutting-edge forensic technology and detailed study of archival photos, film footage, and eyewitness descriptions have allowed historians to reconstruct a highly accurate visual representation of Malcolm X, the influential Black nationalist leader known for his powerful advocacy for African American rights during the Civil Rights era. Malcolm X was of medium height, approximately 5 feet 11 inches tall, with a lean, athletic build that reflected his disciplined lifestyle and physical vigor. His facial features were sharp and striking, with a long, angular face framed by a closely cropped hairstyle that became one of his trademarks. His deep-set eyes were a dark brown, often described as piercing and thoughtful, capable of conveying both fierce determination and introspective reflection. His nose was prominent and well-defined, complementing a strong jawline and thin lips that frequently held a serious, purposeful expression. Malcolm X's complexion was a warm medium brown, reflecting his African-American heritage, and his skin showed the subtle texture and natural variations typical of a person living under the stresses and challenges of activism during a turbulent period in American history. Typically, his style was sharp and formal, with suits, ties, and glasses enhancing his authoritative presence. Modern reconstructions based on 2025 technology include realistic skin tones, asymmetries, and fine details that humanize Malcolm X beyond iconic imagery, presenting him as a complex, determined, and deeply committed individual whose physical appearance reflected the intensity and passion that defined his leadership and lasting contributions to the fight for justice and equality. Rosa Parks reimagined, a forensic portrait of courage. By 2025, new technological advances in facial reconstruction, along with detailed examination of archival photographs and first-hand accounts, will have provided a more vivid and accurate portrayal of Rosa Parks, the courageous civil rights activist who famously sparked the Montgomery bus boycott. Parks stood at an average height of about 5 feet 4 inches and had a slender, graceful frame. Her face was marked by gentle, rounded features, including warm, expressive brown eyes that conveyed a quiet strength and deep resolve. She had a smooth, oval face with high cheekbones and a soft jawline, features that reflected her dignified yet approachable nature. Her hair was dark and typically styled in a neat, shoulder-length manner, often seen in photographs with subtle waves that framed her face delicately. Her skin tone was a rich medium brown, typical of her African-American heritage, and her complexion carried a natural glow, highlighting the warmth and resilience that those who knew her described as characteristic of her. While much of her public image emphasizes her calm and composed demeanor, modern reconstructions incorporate subtle facial lines and textures that illustrate the depth of her lived experience and the quiet determination that fueled her activism. Parks' clothing style was modest and practical, usually comprising simple dresses and coats that reflected her middle-class background and personal humility. These detailed, updated visual reconstructions from 2025 help present Rosa Parks not just as an iconic figure frozen in time, but as an honest, multi-dimensional woman whose appearance embodied the courage and steadfastness that helped catalyze a pivotal movement in American history. Sojourner Truth Reborn, a forensic portrait of strength and resolve. As of 2025, advances in digital reconstruction technology, combined with extensive study of rare photographs, written descriptions, and historical context, have allowed a more detailed and accurate portrayal of Sojourner Truth, the influential abolitionist and women's rights advocate. Sojourner Truth was a tall, imposing figure for her time, standing around 5 feet 10 inches tall, with a strong, muscular build shaped by a lifetime of physical labor and resilience. Her face was characterized by high cheekbones, a broad forehead, and a prominent nose, all of which contributed to a commanding and dignified presence. Her dark eyes, deep-set and piercing, reflected both the hardships she endured and the fierce determination that fueled her activism. Her hair was often pulled back tightly, sometimes covered with a headscarf, revealing a smooth, dark complexion that spoke to her African-American and formerly enslaved heritage. Unlike many idealized or romanticized images from the 19th century, modern reconstructions emphasize the natural texture of her skin and the subtle asymmetries that highlight her humanity. She was often seen in modest, practical clothing typical of the mid-1800s, frequently wearing shawls and long dresses that reflected her humble origins and spiritual dedication. These 2025 visual interpretations offer a fresh perspective on Sojourner Truth, showing her as a real woman shaped by struggle and strength, whose physical presence matched her powerful voice and unshaken dedication to justice. This deeper, more authentic depiction helps modern audiences connect with the complexity and courage of one of America's most enduring social reformers. Harriet Tubman Revealed, a forensic portrait of courage and resilience. By 2025, sophisticated forensic analysis, digital facial reconstruction, and meticulous examination of historical photos, sketches, and eyewitness accounts will have provided a more comprehensive and accurate portrayal of Harriet Tubman, the legendary conductor of the Underground Railroad. Tubman was of medium height, approximately 5 feet 2 inches, with a strong and sturdy build that reflected the physical demands of her extraordinary life. Her face was marked by sharp, determined features, including high cheekbones, a broad forehead, and a resolute jawline, which conveyed both toughness and compassion. Her eyes, dark and intense, revealed a fierce determination and profound wisdom born from years of hardship and courage in leading enslaved people to freedom. Her skin tone was deep brown, rich and textured, bearing the natural marks of a life spent primarily outdoors and in harsh conditions. Tubman's hair was typically pulled back tightly, often covered with a simple headscarf, revealing a face shaped by resilience and an unyielding spirit. While early images and descriptions sometimes romanticized her appearance, modern reconstructions emphasize the natural imperfections and subtle asymmetries that humanize her and add authenticity. Her clothing was practical and modest, suitable for the complex journeys she undertook at night, typically consisting of plain dresses and sturdy shoes. These updated 2025 visual representations bring Harriet Tubman to life beyond myth and legend, presenting her as a powerful, determined woman whose physical presence embodied the courage, endurance, and dedication to freedom that defined her legacy throughout American history. W.E.B. Du Bois' true appearance revealed by modern scholarship. As of 2025, a combination of digital restoration techniques, facial reconstruction, and thorough review of photographs and written descriptions has allowed historians to present a highly accurate and nuanced portrayal of W.E.B. Du Bois, the influential intellectual, sociologist, and co-founder of the NAACP. Standing at approximately 5 feet 11 inches tall, W.E.B. Du Bois was known for his dignified and scholarly presence, which reflected his status as a leading voice in African American civil rights and intellectual circles. His face was characterized by a long oval shape with a high forehead, symbolizing his philosophical depth. His deep-set eyes were dark brown, often described as piercing and thoughtful, conveying both intense focus and a compassionate understanding of social injustice. Du Bois's complexion was a medium brown, and his skin bore the natural texture and subtle imperfections that give a realistic sense of his humanity. His hair was naturally black and tightly curled, typically worn short and well-groomed, reflecting his polished and meticulous personal style. Facial features included an intense, straight nose and well-defined lips, which often appeared serious, but were also capable of warmth and a rare smile. His clothing style was formal and elegant, as he typically wore suits that reflected his academic and activist roles, contrasting with the ruggedness often associated with other leaders of the time. The updated 2025 reconstructions present W.E.B. Du Bois as a complex figure whose physical presence mirrored the intellect, determination, and grace that established him as a towering figure in the struggle for equality and civil rights in American history. Booker T. Washington's real appearance captured by modern analysis. By 2025, advancements in forensic imaging and detailed historical research will have produced a more accurate and vivid depiction of Booker T. Washington, who was a prominent educator and advocate for African American racial uplift during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Washington was of medium height, approximately 5 feet 9 inches tall, and had a solid, robust frame that reflected both his humble beginnings and enduring resilience. A broad forehead and high cheekbones marked his face, exuding a calm and determined presence that inspired those around him. His eyes were dark brown, often described as steady and contemplative, reflecting a man deeply committed to education and progress despite the harsh realities of segregation and discrimination. Washington's complexion was a rich medium brown, showing natural skin texture and subtle signs of age and experience that have been carefully rendered in modern reconstructions to move beyond idealized portraits. His hair was typically short and neatly combed, often showing traces of gray during his later years, reinforcing his image as a dignified elder statesman. Washington normally wore formal attire, favoring suits that conveyed his professionalism and commitment to leadership within the African American community. The 2025 updated reconstructions include fine details such as skin imperfections and facial asymmetries that humanize Washington, portraying him not only as a historic icon, but as a genuine individual who overcame adversity with grace, intelligence, and an unparalleled commitment to uplifting his people through education and pragmatic leadership during a complex and challenging era in American history. Ulysses S. Grant's authentic appearance through contemporary study. A comprehensive analysis of photographs, paintings, and personal descriptions, combined with advanced facial reconstruction technology, provided a more precise and more realistic portrayal of Ulysses S. Grant, the Union general who led the North to victory in the Civil War and later served as the 18th President of the United States. Grant was of average height for his time, approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall, with a stocky, broad-shouldered build that reflected both his military discipline and the rugged lifestyle of the 19th century. His face was characterized by a square jaw, a prominent chin, and a broad forehead, all of which contributed to a stern yet approachable demeanor. His eyes, deep-set and grayish-blue, often conveyed a look of quiet determination mixed with weariness from years of conflict and leadership challenges. Grant's hair was dark brown during his younger years, gradually turning gray and white as he aged, often worn short and slightly tousled. His skin tone was light with a ruddy complexion, bearing the marks of outdoor campaigns and years of stress. Modern reconstructions emphasize natural facial asymmetries and skin textures, moving away from the idealized portraits common in earlier representations. His typical attire included military uniforms during the war and formal suits in his presidential years, symbolizing both his martial achievements and civilian leadership. These updated visualizations from 2025 enable us to view Ulysses S. Grant as a multifaceted individual whose physical presence embodies the resilience, complexity, and determination that characterized his vital contributions to shaping American history during a transformative period. Robert E. Lee's real-life image clarified by modern research. Enhanced digital reconstruction techniques, combined with careful analysis of period photographs, paintings, and written eyewitness accounts, have provided a more precise and accurate visual representation of Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general renowned for his leadership during the American Civil War. Lee stood at approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, with a slender yet athletic build, reflecting the physical fitness he maintained throughout his military career despite the burdens of war. Grant's aristocratic features marked his face, including a high forehead, prominent cheekbones, and an intense narrow nose that complemented his dignified bearing. His eyes, a striking gray, often conveyed a calm intensity paired with a contemplative nature, hinting at the inner complexities of a man torn between loyalty to his home state and the broader implications of the conflict. Lee had dark brown hair in his youth, which turned silver gray as he aged, and it was typically worn short and neatly combed. His complexion was fair, with subtle signs of aging and stress, which modern reconstructions capture through realistic skin textures and slight facial asymmetries, moving beyond idealized portraits to reveal a more human side. His attire ranged from the iconic gray Confederate military uniform to formal civilian suits later in life, reflecting his dual identities as a soldier and a statesman. These updated 2025 depictions provide a more nuanced perspective on Robert E. Lee's physical presence, portraying him as a complex historical figure whose appearance reflected the discipline, dignity, and inner conflicts that shaped his controversial yet enduring influence on American history. William Tecumseh Sherman's true appearance revealed by contemporary research. Advancements in forensic technology, combined with detailed studies of surviving photographs, paintings, and written descriptions, have provided historians with a more precise and more accurate image of William Tecumseh Sherman, the Union general famous for his March to the Sea and pivotal role in the American Civil War. Sherman stood approximately 5 feet 6 inches tall, with a lean yet sturdy build that reflected both his disciplined military lifestyle and the physical demands of wartime leadership. His facial features were distinctive, including a long, narrow face with high cheekbones, a prominent aquiline nose, and a strong jawline that gave him a resolute and somewhat stern expression. His eyes were light-colored, likely blue or gray, and conveyed a penetrating intensity reflecting both his strategic mind and the burden of his responsibilities during one of the nation's most tumultuous periods. Sherman's hair was originally dark, but turned to a mix of gray and white as he aged. It was often combed back neatly, which complemented his well-maintained beard and mustache that framed his face. His complexion was fair, with subtle weathering, consistent with the time spent outdoors during military campaigns. Modern reconstructions incorporate realistic skin textures, sprinkles, and subtle asymmetries, adding a humanizing dimension to his visage that transcends the often idealized portrayals of the past. Sherman typically wore the Union general's blue military uniform during the war and formal suits in his post-war years, reflecting his transition from military commander to influential public figure. These 2025 updated visuals provide a deeper connection to Sherman as a real person, whose physical presence demonstrates the complexity and determination that shaped his legacy in American history. George S. Patton's authentic appearance re-examined by modern technology. By 2025, the use of advanced facial reconstruction and digital restoration techniques, combined with thorough examination of archival photos and wartime footage, has enabled historians to create a more accurate and vivid portrayal of George S. Patton, the flamboyant and controversial World War II general renowned for his aggressive tactics and charismatic leadership. Patton was roughly 5 feet 10 inches tall and had a robust, muscular build which reflected his lifelong commitment to physical fitness and military discipline. A strong jawline, pronounced cheekbones, and a broad forehead marked his facial structure, underscoring his commanding presence. His piercing blue eyes were often noted for their intensity and sharp focus, conveying both a fierce determination and an unyielding confidence that inspired troops and intimidated opponents alike. Patton's hair was light brown and often slicked back meticulously, a style he maintained even on the battlefield, which became one of his distinctive personal trademarks. His skin was fair and tended to burn easily, a fact corroborated by the slight sun damage visible in photographs taken during his time in North Africa and Europe. Modern reconstructions go beyond polished military portraits to reveal subtle imperfections, wrinkles, and the natural asymmetry of his face, humanizing a figure sometimes viewed only through the lens of legend. Patton's attire varied from the decorated general's uniform adorned with medals and insignia to casual gear during campaigns, illustrating his dynamic role as both a battlefield commander and a public personality. These 2025 visualizations deepen our understanding of General Patton, portraying him as a multifaceted individual whose physical presence matched his legendary reputation in American military history. Dwight D. Eisenhower's genuine appearance revealed through modern study. Forensic techniques, combined with meticulous analysis of wartime photographs, film footage, and eyewitness testimonies, have allowed historians to reconstruct a detailed and accurate image of Dwight D. Eisenhower, the highly respected World War II general and 34th President of the United States. Eisenhower stood about 5 feet 10 inches tall and had a sturdy, solid build that reflected both his athletic background and the physical demands of military leadership. His face was characterized by a broad forehead, a strong chin, and a slightly rounded jawline that conveyed a sense of calm authority. His eyes, light blue and often described as steady and thoughtful, revealed both his strategic mind and his approachable leadership style. Eisenhower had light brown hair in his younger years, which turned to a distinguished silver gray as he aged. He typically kept it short and neat, fitting his disciplined personality. His complexion was fair, with a natural rosy undertone, and modern reconstructions highlight subtle skin textures and the natural asymmetries that provide a more humanized and authentic representation. During World War II, Eisenhower was often seen in his olive drab uniform as a general, adorned with stars and insignia, symbolizing his command over the Allied forces. In contrast, his presidential years were marked by the classic suits of mid-20th century American politics. The 2025 updated visuals move beyond idealized portraits to show Eisenhower as a complex individual, combining strength and warmth. These images offer a deeper insight into the man whose leadership influenced significant events in both American and world history, reminding us that behind the iconic figure was a real person whose physical presence reflected his legacy of resilience and resolve. Eleanor Roosevelt's true appearance uncovered by contemporary research. A combination of advanced digital imaging and an extensive review of archival photographs, personal letters, and eyewitness descriptions has provided a more authentic and detailed representation of Eleanor Roosevelt, the influential First Lady and tireless human rights advocate. Standing around 5 feet 11 inches tall, Eleanor was notably taller than many women of her era and had a slender, graceful frame that conveyed both elegance and strength. Her face was characterized by high cheekbones, a broad forehead, and a pointed chin, lending her a distinctive and expressive visage that communicated intelligence and compassion. Her eyes, a striking shade of blue-gray, were often described as penetrating and empathetic, reflecting the deep sensitivity and conviction that fueled her lifelong activism. Eleanor's hair was dark brown with subtle waves, frequently pulled back in the practical yet stylish manner typical of the 1930s and 1940s, which complemented her poised demeanor. Her complexion was fair, revealing the natural textures and slight imperfections characteristic of a life lived under public scrutiny and constant travel. Modern reconstructions emphasize these realistic details, moving beyond the idealized images commonly seen in history books to present Eleanor as a fully realized human being. She was often photographed in tailored suits and simple but elegant dresses, reflecting her blend of political acumen and personal modesty. These updated 2025 visuals invite us to appreciate Eleanor Roosevelt not just as a historic icon, but as a real person whose physical presence matched the strength, warmth, and determination that made her one of the most respected figures in American and global history. Dolley Madison's visual legacy. Breakthroughs in digital facial reconstruction and extensive archival research have provided historians and the public with a more accurate and nuanced understanding of Dolley Madison, the influential early First Lady who played a significant role in shaping women's positions in American political and social life during the Republic's formative years. Dolley stood approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall, a notable height for a woman of her time, with a curvaceous figure that was widely admired in the early 19th century. Her facial features were soft and symmetrical, with a rounded face, full cheeks, and a gently tapered chin that gave her an inviting and gracious appearance. On contemporary accounts, she described her eyes as large and hazel, often sparkling with charm and intelligence, qualities that made her a beloved hostess and skilled political partner to James Madison. Her hair was dark brown and luxuriously thick, often styled in elaborate updos adorned with feathers, pearls, or decorative turbans that became an integral part of her iconic image. Her skin tone was warm ivory, with a healthy glow attributed to her active social life and love for the outdoors. Modern reconstructions, based on preserved portraits, descriptions, and forensic modeling, bring out the fine details, such as slight facial asymmetries and period-appropriate expressions, that make her appearance feel more lifelike than stylized. Known for her fashion sense and sociability, Dolley Madison typically wore empire waist gowns in vibrant fabrics, which helped to elevate the tone of official Washington events. These updated 2025 visuals reintroduce Dolley Madison as a lively, elegant, and politically savvy woman whose memorable physical presence matched her enduring influence on the evolving American presidency. Clara Barton's lifelike advances. Refined facial reconstruction methods, along with an exhaustive review of rare photographs, personal letters, and documented eyewitness accounts, will enable the most accurate visualization to date of Clara Barton, the compassionate and tenacious founder of the American Red Cross. Standing approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall, Barton possessed a slight but resilient build, her frame shaped by years of tireless work in battlefield hospitals, disaster zones, and public service. Her elongated face, characterized by a narrow jawline and high cheekbones, exuded a determined grace. Barton's eyes, deep-set and described by contemporaries as either hazel or light brown, radiated intensity and deep empathy, often catching the attention of those who met her during her decades of humanitarian work. Her hair, dark chestnut in color, was typically parted in the center and pulled back into a modest bun, consistent with the practical and dignified fashion of the mid-19th century. Her skin was fair, bearing the natural texture and weathering of someone who spent long hours exposed to the elements. Using current digital enhancements, experts have gone beyond the stoic portraits to reveal Clara Barton's subtle facial expressions, asymmetries, and realistic aging features, providing a richer understanding of her presence. Clothing reconstructions depict her in functional yet respectable attire, simple dark dresses with white collars, which reflect her Quaker background and professional focus. The 2025 visual reconstructions depict Clara Barton not only as a historical icon, but also as an honest and determined woman, whose physical image is inseparable from her unwavering dedication to service and compassion during the most harrowing moments of American history. Susan B. Anthony's appearance restored with forensic precision. Historians and digital forensic artists have combined advanced facial reconstruction techniques with period photography, sculpture studies, and contemporary descriptions to present the most historically accurate image of Susan B. Anthony, the unwavering leader of the women's suffrage movement. Anthony stood approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall with a solid, upright posture that reflected her determined spirit and lifelong discipline. Her facial features were angular and well-defined, including a sharp nose, a strong jawline, and deep-set eyes that observers often described as steel gray, intense, focused, and filled with conviction. Her brow was prominent, contributing to a naturally serious expression even in moments of calm, which reflected her role as a relentless campaigner for justice and equality. Her hair, which darkened from light brown to deep gray as she aged, was typically parted in the middle and pulled into a tight bun at the back of her head, a style both practical and emblematic of her era and personal austerity. Her complexion was fair, with a ruddy undertone, and digital restorations from 2025 accentuated the weathering of her skin, which had occurred over decades of travel, public speaking, and activism in various weather conditions. She commonly wore dark, modest dresses that featured high necklines and lace collars, opting to dress in a manner that emphasized professionalism over fashion. Today's reconstructions go beyond idealized representations to portray Anthony with realistic wrinkles, asymmetry, and natural aging, capturing the essence of a figure who was as physically grounded as she was ideologically driven. These efforts vividly bring Susan B. Anthony to life for a modern audience, restoring her human likeness in alignment with her historical legacy. Amelia Earhart's visual identity. Modern historical imaging has offered the most precise and most realistic portrayal yet of Amelia Earhart, the aviation trailblazer whose disappearance in 1937 remains one of the most captivating mysteries in American history. Utilizing high-resolution archival photographs, motion footage, and detailed personal descriptions, digital historians and forensic artists have collaborated to create an accurate depiction of Earhart's appearance in life. She stood about 5 feet 8 inches tall, notably tall and lean, with an athletic build shaped by her piloting career and active lifestyle. Her facial structure was long and angular, with a high forehead, defined cheekbones, and a slender jawline that gave her a strikingly modern appearance. Her eyes were a light gray blue, often described as clear and intense, suggesting both her intellectual curiosity and fearless spirit. Her short tousled hair, light brown with a natural wave, was typically styled in a loose bob, reflecting both her nonconformist personality and the evolving fashion of the 1930s. Earhart's skin was fair, with a sun-kissed quality marked by time spent in open cockpits and airfields. Like earlier stylized depictions, the 2025 reconstructions reveal subtle asymmetries, lines of expression, and natural imperfections, presenting her not as a distant icon, but as a living, breathing woman of her time. Her clothing, typically a flight jacket worn over utilitarian trousers or a tailored suit, emphasize both functionality and style. The updated portrayal of Amelia Earhart adds a fresh dimension to her legacy, offering a realistic vision of a bold pioneer whose appearance reflected her revolutionary role in aviation and women's history. Betsy Ross's appearance. Scholars and digital reconstruction experts collaborated to present the most historically grounded visualization of Betsy Ross, the Philadelphia upholsterer long associated with sewing the first American flag. Though much of her legacy is shaped by folklore, modern researchers have worked to separate the myth from reality by analyzing surviving portraits, family accounts, and 18th century documentation, resulting in a portrayal that reflects both the woman and the legend. Ross stood approximately 5 feet 3 inches tall, with a modest, sturdy build typical of women who engaged in manual craftsmanship during the Revolutionary era. Her face, reconstructed using descriptions from descendants and analysis of period-specific physiognomy, featured a soft, rounded jaw, prominent cheekbones, and a balanced nose. Her eyes were likely brown, wide-set, and expressive, hinting at quiet determination and domestic strength. Her hair, dark chestnut in tone, would have been worn in simple buns or tucked under a linen cap, as was customary for Quaker women and colonial artisans. Her fair skin, slightly weathered from years of labor, now displays a lifelike texture that illustrates the physicality of her trade. These realistic facial reconstructions reject the embellished Victorian illustrations that often romanticized her image, instead offering a historically plausible viewpoint grounded in fact. Ross's attire, recreated through textile research, features modest dresses in muted earth tones with full skirts, aprons, and a practical bodice, appropriate for her class and trade. This 2025 representation of Betsy Ross humanizes her legacy, offering a more tangible connection to the woman behind the patriotic myth and reminding modern audiences that the foundation of American symbolism was built by real hands, not just heroic legend. Sitting Bull's Indigenous-Led Research. Growing collaboration among indigenous historians, digital anthropologists, and forensic artists, a respectful and historically accurate visual reconstruction of Sitting Bull, the revered Hunkpapa Lakota leader and spiritual figure, will have been developed. Using a combination of verified photographs, oral histories, detailed ethnographic records, and tribal insights, the project prioritized authenticity and cultural sensitivity. Standing approximately 5 feet 9 inches tall, Sitting Bull had a commanding but grounded presence, with a solid, wiry frame shaped by a life of endurance, ceremony, and resistance. His face, now accurately rendered, displays strong cheekbones, a firm jaw, and a high forehead, features that align with both family accounts and early photographic evidence. His deep-set, contemplative eyes, described by many as piercing and intelligent, were a rich brown and often conveyed a mix of calm wisdom and unbreakable resolve. His hair, dark and thick, was traditionally worn in 2 long braids, usually adorned with beads or wrapped in fur, symbolizing both cultural identity and warrior status. His complexion, a warm sun-bronzed tone, reflects years spent on the plains and in ceremony, with modern reconstructions including realistic skin textures and natural lines of aging. Traditional attire, recreated from museum artifacts and first-hand documentation, includes a feathered headdress worn during ceremonial moments and day-to-day garments of buckskin and patterned blankets. These depictions remove the romanticized distortions of 19th century artists, instead restoring Sitting Bull as he truly was, a spiritual leader, a warrior, and a protector of his people. This 2025 effort honors his legacy with the dignity and truth his image has long deserved, offering a respectful and realistic connection to an enduring symbol of Native resistance and resilience. Geronimo's Authentic Cultural and Scientific Collaboration. A historically significant breakthrough in collaborative reconstruction among indigenous Apache historians, digital forensic experts, and cultural anthropologists provided the most accurate depiction yet of Geronimo, the fearless leader and symbol of Apache resistance during the late 19th century. Military propaganda and romanticized Western portraiture have often distorted Geronimo's physical image, known to his people as Goyakla, meaning the one who yawns. Recent efforts have utilized confirmed photographs, personal stories from the tribe, detailed military records, and information from careful studies of family remains to create a realistic image that honors both cultural traditions and historical facts. Geronimo stood approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, with a lean yet muscular frame honed by years of survival in the harsh southwest terrain. His face featured strong cheekbones, a defined brow, and a firm angular jaw, characteristics consistent with Apache lineage and oral family descriptions. His eyes, a penetrating dark brown, reflected intensity and resilience, often conveying unspoken emotion, loss, and determination. His hair, once thick and raven black, was traditionally worn long and parted at the center, with age bringing silver streaks that added dignity to his presence. His skin tone was deep bronze, weathered from exposure to the sun, wind, and years of conflict. Reconstructions also feature authentic Apache clothing, including buckskin shirts, beaded sashes, and bandanas, which are based on direct consultations with modern Chickawa descendants and artifact archives. These updated visuals humanize Geronimo far beyond myth, presenting him as a complex leader and father figure whose actual appearance reflects the courage and sacrifices involved in defending his people's way of life against overwhelming odds. Thanks for watching Past Paradise, where we bring the past into focus with a Hollywood lens. If you enjoyed seeing the real faces behind history's most significant icons, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into the legends behind the legends. See you in the next reel of the past.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon